You're about to see the game where Mikhail Tal used the Bongcloud Attack and sacrificed his two queens 4 times, which does not seem to be humanly possible. So let's go ahead and get started. Tal is playing white against Kiriyaski playing black, and here we go with the Rue Lopez opening. So far so good. These are still book moves, both sides just developed their pieces, and here black goes for the martial counterattack, and after pawn takes, they counter strike with the move pawn to e4. Quite interesting. White hits this knight, black hits this knight. So after this trade, here many would be tempted to grab this pawn, but Tal was famous for always seeking activity of his pieces and prioritizing that over material, and just in this position he goes pawn d4. He says, hey, I don't care about a pawn, I want to develop quickly. Black goes bishop d6. He's also following the same idea, does not capture here, and white goes bishop g5. Both of them are doing a good job seeking activity of their pieces, and here black pulls off the first trick, bishop takes h2, which is a temporary sacrifice of the bishop, because on the next move after knight to g4, check to the king, black manages to regain the bishop on the next move. And while at first it looks like black kind of managed to achieve something, in fact here white decided to just grab this pawn finally, and the situation remains to be okay. Now black goes bishop f5, and here Tal used also a little joke, knight to d2. It looked like this square is controlled by the queen, but if black does that, that'll drop the bishop on f5, and therefore white could still play knight to d2 and finish his development. Black played h5. Black is still trying to expand on the king side. So Tal plays knight e4, hitting the queen. And after an exchange, now white rooks gets active. Here black played king h7, I guess trying to unpin this pawn so that it can march forward and possibly hit the rook and keep attacking. Tal played bishop c2, saying, hey, I'm watching you. So the king decided to hide back, and here after rook to e1, white fully mobilized his pieces, and here's where the juicy part begins. Black plays f5, saying, hey, I'm going all out on the king side. Tal goes rook e7, hitting this pawn, but black plays f4, just ignoring this and saying, hey, I'm gonna, checkmating on the king side. Tal is also not caring really about that at all, and just pushing his plan. He's going pawn d5. He's got these strong pawns, and he wants to push them forward and, create some passed pawn there, or maybe capture this and create a passed pawns that way. Black played queen to h4 here, and that threatens queen to h2. What do you do about that? You cannot play queen h3 because that would lose this pawn. What do you do instead? Well, Tal said, I don't care, I still don't care, and he played pawn d6, just pushing his plan, trying to arrange a passed pawn there. Black played queen h2, king f1, and here it turned out that although black could check here, but he didn't, because in fact after that the king simply runs away. And therefore black played queen h4, a much trickier move. What's the catch? Well, black wants to play knight to h2, forking the king and the queen. And it seems pretty difficult for white to get rid of that, because you cannot move your queen away. If you move it somewhere, that fails the queen takes f2 checkmate, right? A lot of players would probably just bring their king back to g1, and after queen h2, that would repeat the position and would be a draw. But instead, here is when Tal used the Bongcloud Attack. He played king e2, which looks completely crazy, because the king is marching to the center of the board, right at the middle of the middle game, with all the pieces attacking each other, and the king looks deadly exposed here. But anyway, that solves the problem at least of knight to h2 fork. And here, black played rook d8, which is quite an evil move. What if instead black simply captured this pawn on d6? That would not only capture the pawn, but it would also threaten queen takes e7 check to the king. It turns out that Tal was probably going to just keep marching his king to d1. And after, let's say, knight to f2, the king hides here on c1. It's quite a remarkable march of the king, to the opposite side of the board, right in the middle of the game, under the fire of black's pieces. That didn't happen in the game, but that would be quite spectacular. In the actual game, black found a quite creative move, rook to d8. He wants to cut the king off the d-file, and this pawn can never move because that will lose the rook on e7. The situation looks critical to white, because what do you do here really? Rook takes d6 is coming, queen is still pointing towards this, is somewhat putting pressure towards the rook. White's position looks extremely shaky, and here Tal demonstrates his brilliancy, and he plays the move rook to h1. He's sacrificing a rook, or as Levi Rosman would say, a rook sacrificing a rook. For seemingly no reason, right? Black just grabs it, and that's it. So I mean, what's the point? I mean, I know you're not impressed because many of you guys also love to give up the rook for no reason. But here the point is, white simply wanted to deflect the queen from this square and just gain an extra tempo for his attack. That's it. And there is no force in checkmate after that. He simply wanted to accelerate his attack, right? So he just played queen e4, saying, okay, now I'm threatening queen to h7 checkmate. Black played knight f6 to counter the queen and to counter the threat. Now queen goes inside with queen g6, threatening this time queen to g7. Rook g8 is played, and it looks like black is just fully covering his position and he's still up rook. But Tal continues attacking as if nothing happened. Pawn takes c7, attacking the rook, rook goes away, and here comes the first queen sacrifice. The first queen has got sacrificed on c8. Now, you may still not be impressed. You may say, hey, that was actually just a pawn, so that's like, okay, technically a queen sacrifice, but not really. Alright, so for those people, on the next move, Tal sacrificed another queen. So this time that's a real queen sack, and I cannot accept it because if pawn takes, here comes this quite a neat checkmate, rook h7, and thanks to the support of the bishop, that is a checkmate. I bet you don't see a checkmate like that often. Therefore, black couldn't take it. He decided to play f3, trying to somehow mix things up. White recaptured, and black played rook to e8. By the way, what's also crazy about this game is that Tal played this game in a simo, okay? So that was his simultaneous exhibition playing against many players. So it's crazy that he could find these brilliant moves. And it's also crazy that his opponent is quite on par, is also playing quite well. Now, rook e8, he wants to trade off rooks and therefore slow down or eliminate white's attack. White played bishop e4 just to solidify everything, you know, close the e-file and defend these pawns. Black traded rooks indeed, and played queen c1. Looks like white's attack is over, and now black is ready to start creating threats to white's king, but Tal played another nice move to solidify his position, queen e5. From here, it threatens the pawn on h5, and generally speaking solidifies again white's position. Now queen takes b2, check to the king, king f1, queen c1, and king goes back to g2. It's interesting that at some point the king decided to run to the queen side, but halfway through it changed its mind and decided, okay, that was too risky, let's go back to the king side. And now checks are over, and black has to defend this pawn. He played queen h6, and now his king is fully defended, surrounded by black's pieces, but white just moves the pawn forward on the opposite side of the board and said, hey, now you gotta watch over this passer. Black plays rook to f8, and here comes yet another queen sacrifice, queen to f5. Giving up the queen for the third time in this game. And what's the point? Well, if the rook moves, which he didn't play in the game, I would promote the other one instantaneously, check to the king, and on the next move he would win the rook. So at the end of the day, he would have an extra bishop in this position, and thanks to that, he would have a winning game. So it didn't happen in the game, but it's interesting how frequently you can sacrifice your queen in a single game. In the game, black decided to refuse the queen sacrifice, and he played pawn g6. Counterattacking the queen as well as defending his rook on f8. But Tal was really determined in this game to give up his queen, and therefore he finally did it with queen takes f8, sacrificing the queen for the fourth time in this game. And after queen takes and bishop comes to b7, there is no way for black to stop the pawn from being promoted on the next move, which will, as a result of that, for example here, give white an extra bishop in an endgame, and black just resigned. So really one of the best games I've ever seen in my life. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy Bobby Fischer's most brutal attack ever, and you can check it out by clicking the link over there. And if you want to learn the main chess attack and patterns, you're welcome to check out the free masterclass by clicking the link over there. Keep crushing it, and I'll talk to you soon.